Welcome to Home Biz Tax Talk. My name is Lysandra Everett. I am the Home Biz Tax Lady, where I help home business owners win the tax game. Home Biz Tax Talk airs Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock-ish. And when you tune into my show, you're going to hear about topics that are important to the home business community. This week, we have been focusing on the tax collection process. Like, what is the process that the IRS goes through to collect unpaid tax liabilities? We've talked about the different ways that you can settle your taxes. We talked about the IRS process that they have to go through just briefly to collect their taxes, the thing that they have to do. The main takeaway when you're dealing with tax liability is to keep in contact with the IRS and file your taxes on time. So if you're filing your taxes, even if you have a tax liability, you can work with the IRS. But if you have not filed your taxes, they are not trying to hear you, period. Okay. And if you have an agreement with them in some fashion, you have to abide by the agreement or make sure you contact them, because if you have to miss a payment or something, then you need to let them know, because otherwise you force their hand in enforcing the law. And that's just not cute. Okay. So today I want to really talk about, taxpayer credentials, because we hear a lot of different terms. We hear about tax representation, tax preparation, like really, what are you getting? So I thought the best way to do that is to really talk about taxpayer credentials to help you really understand what it is that you're getting. Okay, so let's talk about representation, what that means. Representation, you usually think of like an attorney, right? Like if you watch Law and Order, right? And you see the people there with the lawyer that's representing the client, it's kind of like that. Representation on the tax side allows certain professionals to help you deal with the IRS, where you have signed a power of attorney that says, yes, IRS, it is okay for you to talk to this person. But there's different levels of representation rights. Okay. So I want to talk about that so that you understand exactly what you're getting and the difference between the representation piece and the preparation piece, the tax preparation piece. Okay. So the people that have unlimited representation rights, those are your enrolled agents, people like me who are enrolled agents. And enrolled agents is somebody who has gotten a certification from the IRS. We've taken a 3-part exam, passed it. The IRS says, boom shakalaka, yes, this person has passed this exam. And listen, with all of these different levels of stuff, one of the things that the IRS never does is certifies competency, because they can't do that, because they don't know if you're taking your continuing education like you're supposed to, okay, until you send some stuff. So the IRS they don't say, okay, yeah, that person is competent. It just says that they've passed this exam. So when you're dealing with people, you really have to ask, like, what kind of things have you done? All that stuff. Don't be afraid to question people about what their qualifications are. Okay. So that's the enrolled agent. They've passed a 3-part exam and they've demonstrated proficiency in tax planning, individual and business tax preparation, and representation. And we got to complete 72 hours worth of continuing education every 3 years. Okay. That's what we got to do. Okay. The next is the CPA, the Certified Public Accountants. Now, these accountants are licensed by the State Board of Accountancy. And they have to pass a uniform CPA examination. Okay. I've got a girlfriend who right now is studying for the CPA, and that's a beast too. Okay. So, now the thing about CPAs is CPAs are accountants. There are accountants who specialize in tax, but and really they all go hand in hand, because really tax professionals got to know some accounting, and accounting people got to know some tax stuff. Okay. When that finance arena, we all got to know a little bit about everything, but it's really where you specialize. So you do have CPAs who focus deep in accounting, and you do have CPAs who are competent in tax. You got some CPAs that hate tax altogether. Okay. So you really got to know what kind of services that they offer, but they have unlimited representation rights as it goes with the IRS. And then there are the tax attorneys. Okay. These are, people who are licensed by state courts. They've taken a bar exam. They got their own continuing education, blah, blah, blah. All right. So great. So these are the people that if you have a tax issue, it doesn't matter what year your tax issue occurred. These are the people who can represent you on all of those years. Now, then there is limited representation rights. So if you have a tax preparer who does not have one of the above certifications that I just talked about, but they participate in the annual filing season program. Now, you have some tax preparers who do participate in the annual filing season program and some that don't, okay? The ones that participate are really the ones that you want to choose over the ones who don't. Because with the annual filing season program, you have to take a certain level of continuing education. You want somebody who is keeping up with what's going on in these tax streets. Plain and simple. So, in order for you to prepare taxes, let me explain this to you. In order for you to prepare taxes, all you got to do is go get you a P10 number, a preparer tax ID number. And, I don't know if they're still charging because somebody sued the IRS over charging for a P10 number. So I don't know if they're charging or not. But when I got it, it was $50. Okay. So you might have to pay $50. You get your P10 number and boom, you can say, I prepare taxes. It says 0 about competency. And this is where we really start to get into some drama because we have people who do taxes. Okay. But they really don't have the level of education and competency to really be an effective tax preparer because all they doing is punching numbers and telling you owe X amount and taking your money. They're really not providing you any analysis or anything. This is why I tell you, you can't have Larry, Curly, Moe, and Shemp doing your taxes every year. You really need somebody who is looking over your tax history and saying, okay, listen, you can be doing this different or that different. Okay. This is what, people what are we paying you for? You're paying me to look over your tax history and say, listen, you're doing this and you're paying too much in taxes, or you claim this and that's absolutely wrong. And we're trying to keep you out of jail. All right. So when it comes down to dealing with tax debt and dealing with the IRS, the thing that I'm very open about is that anything dealing with your tax life, you can do yourself. Okay. It's just, you have to have a level of competency. And so people go and get Google educated and YouTube educated. And what did I tell you? You can find any type of evidence on the internet to support what you want to do. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing to do. Just saying. Okay. And Pat mentioned an EFIN too. And, now electronic filing identification number. So you got your preparer tax ID number, your P10 and your EFIN number. But listen to me, Linda. Listen. You have people that have a P10 that's still filing taxes using TurboTax Home, and you don't know it until they tell you got to mail your junk in, because you can only file 5 tax returns with the at-home software. So that's something else. If you're dealing with somebody that doesn't have commercial software, that is a red flag. It doesn't mean they're incompetent, but if you are using, like I said, the at-home software as a tax professional to prepare other people's taxes, that's a no-go at this station. Okay, moving on. Okay, so now, how does this all relate to tax stuff and audits and all of that stuff? Okay, so like I said, with the limited representation rights, and this is something that's actually fairly recent for the IRS, is now with the limited representation rights, is that tax preparer that prepared that particular year can represent you with that particular year. So if you have a tax preparer who's not an EA or CPA or an attorney that prepared your 2017 taxes and something happens, well, they can only represent you for the 2017 taxes or the years that they prepared your taxes. Now, the EAs, CPAs, and attorneys, it doesn't matter. It can be your 2017 taxes. It can be your 2013 taxes. It doesn't matter. Okay. That is the unlimited representation piece. Now, The thing that people have the most difficult time with is understanding that these are separate services than tax preparation. Tax preparation is just that. We're taking that particular year, we're taking your documents, and we're preparing your taxes based on the documentation that you provide. That is the the tax preparation piece. That is the end of that job. If you start getting letters and such from the IRS and you want us to help you respond to those letters, that is a separate service. And yeah, a separate service comes with a separate fee. And people have a difficult time understanding why that is. And the fact is that these are two entirely different things. Like during the season, you can prepare 500 tax returns. That does not mean that tax professional is representing you with the IRS. It just means they prepared your taxes. Now, if you want to retain representation services, that is a completely different animal. That means that you have, like I said, you signed the power of attorney, and that has been granted for this professional to go through and pull your transcripts and look and see what's going on with you at the IRS, and then make recommendations to you based on the information that they found. We can't do that for free, because we have fees that are associated with this stuff ourselves, not to mention the time that is involved. So you think, oh, well, you just write a letter. Like, no, it's not writing a letter for free. Like, I got nothing else to do with my time. Right? And the thing about that you have to understand, and especially when you're dealing with back taxes and stuff, like, people are really ticked that they have to pay for back taxes to be filed, and then they owe the IRS, and then they owe the tax professional as well. Like, yeah, that's just kind of how that works. And, and so then like people, and I'm like dealing with mindset here, and this is stuff that I'm dealing with like right now. I've got people that are, haven't filed taxes in years, and, like, well, why do I have to pay for this? And why do I have to pay for that? I'm like, okay, why do I got to answer my phone? Like, for real, and this is like, you think about when you go to work. When you go to work, you have a particular job. Now, if they tell you, okay, you need to do your job, and then you need to do Jack's job over here, and you're saying, excuse me, am I making Jack's money? No, you're not going to be too excited about that. So just understand that the representation piece is really a different animal than tax preparation, and understand that different levels of tax preparers have different levels of competency and different levels of representation rights. And especially if something goes wrong with a tax return that I did not prepare, no, I'm not going over here to repair, to redo this tax return, to file an amendment for you, and you get to walk out the door and I don't get to eat. That's not how it works. Okay, so when you're dealing with tax debt, especially when you're getting into large amounts of tax debt, I encourage you to connect with someone like me, a CPA or a tax attorney, to help you do that, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be able to help you navigate the system a lot better, and may even be able to help you come out with a better deal than doing it on your own. But it's going to cost you, and you're going to have to pay that up front. Like, this isn't one of those things where you get to, somebody gets, does all the work and you pay them when it's over. No. And let me tell you, the mentality for us as tax professionals and people that represent you is that if you haven't paid your taxes, then 9 times out of 10, you're not going to pay us when it's all done. So yes, we want our money up front to ensure that we get to eat, and then we take care of you. But that's the mentality. That's our mindset. Because if you haven't done your duty to pay your taxes, then what makes us think that you're going to pay us for the time and effort that we spent to help you resolve said tax debt? So yeah, you're going to have to pay a retainer fee. People like, what does that cost? It's various ranges, but the minimum I've seen is $2,500 to retain services, up to $4,000. That's before any work actually gets done. You're going to pay that retainer for people to start working on your case. because it's a time intense process. It's a time intense process to prepare forms, to, pull transcripts, to write letters, to, to do all of those things in that process. It is a time intense and labor intensive process. And so, yeah, you're going to pay some money up front. And but that, even in that representation piece, that still doesn't include the preparation piece, meaning that if you got to go back and, and file some back taxes or amend some taxes, that's going to be an additional fee. Okay. So the representation and the preparation, two completely different animals, and it's not all lumped together when you're dealing with representation. And so I really want to make that clear to you. So when you are, researching and what does this entail? Just understand that, yeah, tax representation is a costly thing. I do have clients that I represent with the IRS, but this is why I'm here on the education piece, because the more you know up front, then the less you're going to need representation on the end, which costs you way more money. That's why I tell you to get a pay for the consultation, pay for, professionals to prepare your taxes, because that money that you invest there is going to save you the thousands, and I mean thousands of dollars on the back end, especially if you get to the point where you have to hire a tax attorney. Dude, that little bit that you would have had to pay on an annual basis for a tax professional, and that's nothing. In consultation, that would be nothing compared to the check that you got to write to an attorney. Not even cool. Okay. So, all right. So listen, that's it for today's episode of Home Biz Tax Talk. I hope that shed a little bit of light on the representation and credentials and all of that stuff when you're dealing with different levels of tax professionals. And listen, just because a tax professional doesn't have a certain credential doesn't mean they're incompetent. It just means that there is a limit to the representation piece, but you still got to know who you're dealing with, period. You just got to know. All right. So that's it for today's episode of Home Biz Tax Talk. Again, we air Monday through Friday, 9:00-ish, and you can come here to get your questions answered about your home business taxes. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.